Once again, a very warm welcome to all of our attendees this morning to this Tuesday morning Toolbox Talk, brought to you obviously by IOSA, SIOSH, as well as FEM. And we just want to remind you of the free webinar coming up at the end of this month. That is Tuesday, the last Tuesday of this month. Just after our Toolbox Talk, you'll get ready to do the dangers of non-compliance free webinar. It is verified with one CPD point from SIOSH. It is really directed at health and safety professionals. So if you are working on site, if you have clients that might be interested in it, we're obviously going to be looking at plumbers as well as 37.2, or as a mandatory contractor, somebody who is a service provider to a client. And we're going to be taking a look at the non-compliant installations that we are finding through the auditing process. So please tune in for this if you have an opportunity. The recording will also be made available, but really we're going to be trying to reach out to all health and safety professionals to show them exactly what they should be looking for in terms of health and safety to ensure every single plumbing installation that they are ordering is up to standard and also done in accordance with regulations. Then do not forget our tips to continually prevent COVID-19. You're hearing this all the time. Obviously, resurgences are happening all the time. Things are happening all around the world. So it's something that you constantly hear. But please don't forget to wash your hands regularly. Don't touch your eyes, nose, and mouth if you have not washed your hands. If anyone that you know is sick, please avoid contact with them, and then cover your cough or sneeze with a flexed elbow. And remember to throw that tissue away if you are using one, and always clean and disinfect your frequently touched objects and surfaces. And this would include your hand tools and power tools. And that is obviously our discussion this morning. Hand and power tools. What are we going to be looking at? Why is it important for us to go back to basics? Now, we have discussed some deep and very important topics on our Toolbox Talks, and often we go back to basic Toolbox Talk topics, if we can put it that way. And today is one of those days. We are going to be looking at just general hand and power tool safety. And then at the end of this month, we will look at water diseases. Now, we have had a few of you sending information in on Legionnaire's disease or Legionella. We will touch on that next week in our Toolbox Talk. So please tune in if you do want to know a little bit more about that. September is coming up, and September for the safety industry is Safetember. So obviously there's going to be a huge drive in what we are going to be looking at. But if there's something specific that you want to look at, please don't forget, you can reach out to us, safety@iopsa.org or info@ohss.co.za. Let's get straight into our Toolbox Talk this morning. And when it comes to hand and power tools, and in particular, we looked at power tools being a little bit more dangerous. And according to a recent Compensation Commissioner's annual report, over 8,000 workers were seriously injured in 1 year because they used defective portable electrical equipment. And these were things such as angle grinders, drills, and sanders. Now, this is what plumbers are using every single day. And that is, you might think to yourself, with so many people in South Africa, 8,000 workers, is that really such a high statistic? Well, let's say, for instance, you were one of them. Would you feel that it is enough people to warrant a little bit of more care when it comes to using tools, power tools? Perhaps you know someone who was injured because of using defective portable electrical equipment. How would they feel if we said they are just a small statistic? Yes, people are dying in car accidents constantly, and caught between or crushed on construction sites is a very major or high fatality rating. In fact, falling from heights is also a very, very high fatality risk. But we sometimes neglect the smaller, seemingly insignificant incidents and accidents. But I'm sure if you spoke to any person that was injured from a portable tool or from a hand tool, they would feel that just one person is enough to warrant a little bit more extra detail when it comes to inspecting, checking, or using tools correctly. Well, if you agree, then the shocking truth behind portable electrical tools is that when you use a portable electrical equipment, such as the angle grinder, like we spoke about earlier, you must check the grinder or cutting disc and ensure that the machine guard is in place. Well, why is this important? Well, first of all, you should never use a large grinding disc on a baby grinder. You see, often what happens is the large grinding disc eventually starts cutting down, and to try and save on money, we take it off, but now it doesn't actually fit on the baby grinder yet. So what is currently happening is the guard of the baby grinder gets taken off, the disc of the big grinder gets put on, and it gets used until it is no longer able to be used on the baby grinder. And this is ingenious, isn't it? Your employer is happy because he's saving money on buying small grinding discs. Well, first of all, it's completely illegal. And why do we say it's illegal? Well, according to the manufacturer, if you do that, the revolutions of a large grinder and a baby grinder are completely different. And you are actually causing the grinding disc to be exposed to higher revolutions than it was manufactured for. And because this goes directly against the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it is a law in South Africa, it is actually illegal to do that. And if somebody is injured and you were found to be doing that, perhaps you weren't injured, but the grinding disc exploded and hurt or even killed somebody else, which is a very big possibility. A grinding disc, for some reason, when it gets damaged or when it comes apart, when it explodes, it doesn't often go for the ground. It always flies through the air and somehow seems to angle for your face all the time. And we have seen this time and time again. People wearing safety glasses and the grinding disc is lodged into the safety glass as if it was angled directly for their eyes. And they're always saying how happy they are that they weren't injured because they were wearing safety glasses. But because it doesn't happen to us, we don't feel the real need to take it seriously. But let's ask, when last did you check the plug of your grinding disc? You see, you've checked the cutting discs, some don't. You've checked the machine guard, some don't. But what about something as simple as the actual plug? When last did you check to see if the conductor wires were properly connected or if the terminal screws were actually tight? You see, it's possible that the earth conductor terminal needs to be tightened or even the core jacket has slipped out of its grip. And this will cause short circuiting. And the person touching the appliance or tool can suffer a shock or injury. In fact, if it does short circuit, there is a possibility of a fire. Now, you might say to yourself, well, is that even possible? Can that happen? Well, yeah, of course it's possible. It's happening all the time. And this is the reason why we are having these toolbox talks. Now, who is responsible for this? As we discussed last week, is it only the employer? Is it only the employee? Well, not at all. All of us are responsible for the tools and equipment we use. From the employer to ensure he purchases good and reliable tools and ensures that there is some sort of maintenance plan. But then the employee himself, the operator, the user of such tools and machines, to inspect them before they are being used or at regular intervals according to our registers and checklists. Now, every site you go to might have different time frames of inspections, but in general, portable electrical tools are normally inspected every single day. And this is one of the recommendations that we make to the construction industry. But they have said it is time consuming. It is too much paperwork. And they have got a weekly inspection. In fact, some construction companies only have a monthly inspection for their power tools. That's quite shocking for me as a health and safety practitioner to see that some safety specifications that I read require a power tool only to be inspected once a month. There is so much that can happen during that month. In fact, even weekly is a bit of a stretch for me, but I'm not the one working with a tool and constantly inspecting it. So I do understand that it is time consuming. But If that is the minimum requirement and you are only needed to inspect these tools every single month, is it really something serious enough for you that you would inspect it more regularly on your own health and safety file and keep a monthly one to keep your client happy? Perhaps that's something to look in on. You see, many of us just want to keep the site running. But don't forget, keeping the site running and being safe may be two different things. Now, here's a bit of an example. A person by the name of Henny had the habit, and I've highlighted the word habit because it has become a habit for some. And he had the habit of using tools until they actually broke in half before he would replace them. One day he was using a screwdriver that had a mushroomed head, or it was blunt. And as he put pressure on the tool, it broke, and the end of it hit him in the eye. Now, unfortunately for Henny, he lost his eye, and even today he wears a glass eye. So yes, you might think to yourself, well, that's one out of how many people that it happens to. He wasn't being safe. And it's always the case. From the outside looking in, seeing somebody using a tool incorrectly, or watching somebody use a tool incorrectly, or even hearing a story about somebody using a tool incorrectly, we always judge. We can be very critical. Yes, but they were being stupid by doing it that way, or they weren't listening to the safety procedures. But when we are in the inside, when we are the actual ones doing that, you see, we're less critical because we are the ones doing it. And so oftentimes we don't actually see what we are doing. Or the old excuse that I'm seeing very often when I get to site and we're doing auditing, and sometimes we do have a good laugh with the employee because afterwards we explain why we are doing these types of audits, is they say, I was only doing it quickly. It was just quickly that I had to do something. And that kind of excuse or kind of explanation, I say excuse more than explanation because it really is an excuse to be doing something too quickly and not to be doing it safely, is that we often take for granted how quickly an accident can actually happen. Now, a reaction time of a normal individual is 0.75 seconds. And now that's for the average person. So just under a second, we have a reaction. For some of us, it's the fight or flight. So you're either going to stand your ground and do something, or you're going to start running in the opposite direction. And that reaction time is just less than a second. However, when incidents and accidents happen, and when grinding discs break, or when tools break off, they are milliseconds. So it's not less than a second, it is less than half a second that these things occur. So even though you think you have a very fast reaction time, and many of us feel, well, we should be sports drivers, or maybe drive motocross, motorbikes. Some of us feel that we're Formula One drivers with our good reaction time, and that's good. It's great to feel that way. But remember that incidents and accidents happen in less of the time than our reaction. So rather think before you do something, is it the right way to do it? Is it the safe way to do it? And then do it every day so that it becomes a habit of doing it safely. Now, when it comes to hand tools, you as plumbers out there in the industry are constantly using tools. It is the tools of your trade. You have to use tools every single day. However, many of the plumbers out there that have been in the industry for many, many years feel that the tools that they grew up with, the tools that they were trained on, and I'm not talking about the ones that are still safe to use. I'm talking about those old, damaged tools, those ones that are actually useless because they do not do what new, modern, safe tools can actually do. Yes, you can get the job done with it, but is it safe enough? So when we take a look at our tools, if they're in very good condition and they are still safe to use, 100%, I fully agree because you've inspected them and they are safe. But if they are not safe and they are just sentimental, we will then hurt those who we love even through our actions. because we might have these tools at home and our children, our spouses could use these tools. So we should never keep any damaged tools, because if we do use it, there is a very big possibility that that tool can become even more damaged, could break, and it could break in the hands of someone who gets potentially injured. So before a tool breaks, do not go to the point of using it until it's broken. Do your preventative maintenance. Now, we know a lot of you say, and again, we've heard this in the auditing that we do, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, this is not what we really want to be in the habit of saying. We want to say before it breaks, we want to protect ourselves and those around us. And as employers, we understand that there are budgets sometimes very tight for new tools. Tools can be extremely expensive, but then why not train your employees on how to protect your tools, keep them in a good condition? That will stop you from replacing tools very often. You see, it's not just the tool that's bad. It's often the person using the tool in a dangerous or unsafe manner that will damage or break the tool. And so they are designed to last long, but not when they are used incorrectly. So if you take a look at any one of these tools in front of you at the moment on the screen, if you are able to do that, none of these are hammers. Not any one of these are hammers. However, every one of them can be used as a hammer, is it not? Because we've seen that. You know, you don't want to take the time to run back to the bucky to go and get a hammer, and so we'll just use one of these to quickly knock in something. But that is not the correct way of doing it. And you see, the old excuse comes, it's just quickly. It's just one thing. All of those will add up to becoming something potentially dangerous to you and the employees around you. So how do you protect yourself? Well, we want to take you through 8 things to protect yourself from portable electrical tools. And then we want to take you through 7 things to protect yourself with hand tools. So the first 8 things that we want to discuss on power tools is to be aware of potential hazards on your portable electrical equipment. Now, this means you need to know and understand the equipment that you are using. Make sure you check all the plugs. Don't just look for the obvious things. Look for the things that could potentially become a fire risk, a shocking hazard. Look at the plug jacket. Oftentimes we get to site and we notice that the 2-prong plug has been cut and replaced with a 3-prong. Now, on some sites, that is a requirement for you to do that. And once that's been done, the constant pulling out and putting in of that plug, the actual top comes off and the entire inside of the plug is now exposed. But you've fixed it 100 times and it keeps happening. Well, look for a better way of doing it, because those 100 times that you saved money every time replacing something, instead of buying the little bit more expensive one, you've spent 3 or 4 times the amount on the seemingly cheaper version of the plug. Whereas if you bought an adequate, safe, proper one, it might not happen as often. And so we don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. We don't just want to look at how it saves us money today. We want to look at how it could potentially save our life in the future. Then, employees, it is your responsibility to report any defects immediately. Now, there is a reporting procedure, and many of us are not following that. You see, it's very easy for you to say it's your employer's responsibility, and you can moan at him sometimes. You can shout him, this tool is unsafe for me to use. Well, that's not reporting defects, is it? You have a register of all the tools that is on site, and you have a checklist where you need to inspect the tools. That is where you put the reports of defective equipment. You see, when you do your register for all the tools that you have, and you have a checklist for each one of these tools that's on your register, it needs to be ticked off and marked as safe or unsafe. That report then needs to be put into the safety file, and it needs to be brought to the attention of your safety representative, safety manager, safety officer, or even your employer that might be working with you. But do not use the tool if it is defective. You see, this is what we are often seeing with employees as well. They will note down that it's damaged, but then still continue to work because the person who they are responsible to answering to is not on site. Employers, managers, supervisors, if your employee is using a defective tool, first of all, stop them. And we know both sides. And please don't think that we don't understand it. We have worked on the ground level with many of you plumbers over the past months. The employee is too scared to stop working because when the manager, supervisor, employer gets there and says, why have you not finished this job? If you say the tool is damaged, the employer freaks out, the manager freaks out, the supervisor freaks out. Supervisors, managers, employees, you cannot do that. Please understand, if your tool is not in the correct condition, your employee cannot use it. And employees, don't hang around the whole day not letting the employer know. You see, you don't want to wait 5 hours because you're getting paid for the day, because you can go home and it's your employer's responsibility to make up the difference or save the time with your client. Work together. You see, it's this type of communication that is lacking, especially when it comes with the employee-employer relationship. Take the time to know and understand your tools and to regularly inspect them. When it comes to portable electrical tools, make sure you handle them with care. And this we are directing specifically at the user or operator of these tools. Remember, your employer is responsible for providing you with tools. That is correct. You must have the tools to perform your job. But if you don't handle it with care, you are the one that is going to be injured. Then ask your artisan to check the wiring and the plugs or send it to an electrician to check. Please remember, do not open it if you are not qualified to do so. And then regular visual inspections and checks. As we mentioned, in some sites, you only have to check it once a month. Personally, I do not feel that that is enough with portable electrical equipment. Now, when it comes to hand tools, here are 7 things to protect yourself. If the tools are blunt and you can't sharpen it, get rid of it. So some tools are designed that you are allowed to sharpen it once it goes blunt. If that tool is not designed in that manner, you cannot continue to use that tool. If there is any rust on the tools, clean it. Remember, a rusty tool can still be cleaned and repaired. It doesn't necessarily need to be thrown away. So employees, when you see a tool that is not in perfect condition, it does not mean that it is not safe. It perhaps just needs to be maintained a little bit better. If you do not get rid of rust, it will start eating away at the metal and it will start making it brittle and weak. And then very possibly it could break while you are actually using it. Then hold on to tools when they aren't, holding on to tools when they aren't any use anymore is not saving anything. All right. It's just going to cost you later on. So go through your tools. If there's any tools that are damaged and cannot be used, don't try and keep them for something else. Just get rid of them and replace it with the correct type of tool that you need. Inspect them regularly and make sure that you check them for rust as well. Keep your tools neat and tidy. Housekeeping is super important. Put everything in its place. It has a place, so put it in its place. And then don't let others use damaged or rusted tools. Now, in this case, Section 14 of the IOSA Act says to employees, you are responsible for your health and safety as well as the health and safety of others. If you see someone doing something, don't reprimand them, help them. All right. What we never want to do is shout at someone. Everyone deserves our respect, regardless of what language they speak, regardless of where they were brought up, regardless of how much training they've been given or how much education they have. Nobody needs to be shouted at. Even if you've told them 100 times, well, tell them 101 times, but do it in a decent way. Remember, you want to be treated the same way as how you treat others. So depending on how you speak to others is how others are going to start speaking to you. So if you're a supervisor or manager or even the employer, please remember that we do not want to neglect the fact that good communication goes a long way in protecting our employees as well. So here's a final question. Have you checked your tools? Most companies choose to download or purchase a sample or standard checklist. Now, at OHSS Consulting, we've also got standard safety files, and many people have downloaded our standard safety files. In fact, over this past few months, we've had over 1,500 companies downloading our standard safety file. And yet, every time they download it, it comes with a specific document that says, please read, that you need to make it site-specific. Now, while we cannot give free site-specific files out, we can give a standard file that gives you at least what you need for most sites. However, this is not a minimum requirement. It is just a standard sample file, and it is based on minimum requirements within the industry. But if you have a register that's like this, or even a safety file that's like this, and you need more information, or perhaps you need a more updated standard, or how can we put sample type of safety file, tell us what is missing from that. You see, you are working in the industry. Perhaps there's something more that we can assist with in putting into these files. Obviously, we cannot make your whole file specific just to your company. That is your responsibility. Or it is the responsibility of your purchasing department to get us out and pay for a site-specific file. But you can use this file to design it. It's in Word document to tailor make it to your company. So use the template and add on additional items to mitigate the risks yourself. Safety should be a collective effort. And we say that honestly and sincerely. At IOSA, at OHSS, even SIOSH, they are all willing to assist you when it is needed with just normal recommendations or suggestions. Yes, certain things are paid for, and we can understand that. No plumber will come out just for 5 minutes to do something because it's a quick fix. No, we still charge for that. But if I did phone any one of the plumbers and asked for advice, they would give it to me. And so please remember, you are not alone. We are here to help you. So from the Institute of Plumbing South Africa, if you need that assistance, they have a dedicated email, safety@iopsa.org. Get in touch. If you need to, get in touch with the Institute of Occupational Safety and Health at SIOSH, or even call us directly, info@ohss.co.za or 071 875 2070. So thank you very much for joining our Toolbox Talk this morning.